Hi, Simi. How are you today?
Good. How are you doing?
Great. Thanks for asking. Thank
Mhm.
you so much for being an art house expert storyteller. I
Sure.
think a lot of people are going to really appreciate everything you have to share with us today and some tools and tips they can walk away with. Would love to begin with knowing more about you formally.
Sure. So I live in the Bay Area. So I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and we have a practice here in Fremont and San Jose called Mindset Counseling Group. And it's been growing over time, and we've been really, there's a part of our practice that focuses on supporting the South Asian, Indian, Pakistani community, which I really is a specialty of mine and something that I really care about because I really want to make sure that we are talking about mental health in our community and also that people who are from our community are able to find clinicians and therapists that understand the culture, understand the background, understand the languages. There's so much to our backgrounds that it's really helpful if the clinicians already understand some of this so that it doesn't have to be explained through the process. And so it's been really great. I've been working in the community for 18 years now, and it's been really nice to see over time that the community is finding us. We have like teenagers, we have young adults, couples coming in, families. So we're really here to support wherever we can. It's been really nice.
Thank you. Okay, I know we chose to speak about divorce and the emotional struggles associated with it in the South Asian community, be it children or the parents. To begin with, I wanted to ask you, why is divorce so different in Desi, this whole South Asian diaspora, when compared to more individualistic cultures?
I think for our culture, it's still a relatively new construct, right? It's a relatively new um, uh, phenomenon that we're going through. A lot of our traditional families that grew up in India, like it was very rare still to have divorced families. And so now coming into the US, a lot of our families here, it's a different generational shift. It's a different concept that people are now trying to navigate. And it's because it's so new to our culture, our families are struggling a bit to navigate this process. Because one of the challenges that I've seen is that a lot of the families, the moms, there's an assumption that the custody, if there's children involved, that the custody will default or go primarily to the mom. And that's not how in California, it's a 50-50 state for custody. It's the default if there's no other outside concerns. So that's a big wake up call for a lot of my families. To see. So that's just one of the issues. It's just a lot to learn. Like it's very new to our culture. People are a little bit hesitant still to talk about it. They don't have other families that have gone through it in the Desi community, so they don't know who to discuss this with. So sometimes coming to the therapist, this is maybe the first conversations they're having, or they've been like researching a little bit online. I also tell people maybe get a consult with a family law attorney just to kind of run through some questions and get some basics down. But it's a lot. To answer your question, I think it's a lot of information, new information to take in,
Mm.
and our community is not very experienced. So this is why it's been a challenge for many of my families
Do
to
you
navigate.
think,
Yeah,
sorry, do
yeah.
you think we still see the whole log kya kahenge, the social
Yeah.
stigma?
Uh-huh. For
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, people are like, oh, what is my neighbor going to say? What is this one going to say? How am I going to tell the school? I don't want the school to know. I don't want this one to know, that one to know. And I think that also kind of that creates more stress for our families. But that also creates a lot of confusion for the kids because then the kids are like, well, I think we are going through a divorce and
Mm.
they're more aware because I don't know culturally, like they're growing up in this country and with the shows and the things that they're exposed to, like they're more aware of this. Um, but the parents sometimes are not ready to talk about, say, divorce or say that we're going through this. They're worried about the stigma. Where actually they don't realize that most couples are going through some kind of strain or tension or stress. Doesn't mean that everyone's going through a divorce, but it's marital relationships are challenging, and so it's Yeah, it's something that a lot of people are facing, and I just feel like some people are going through it behind closed doors, and it's causing more harm than good to kind of keep all that to yourself, versus getting support. Like you can come to a counselor and it'll still be confidential. You can
Hmm.
go to an attorney, it'll still be confidential, but you should doing it by yourself is really is tough. Yeah.
So, what do you see or hear commonly? Is it guilt? We already covered shame. Is it
It's guilt, it's shame, it's like
anger?
anger, it's fear. There's a lot of fear of like, how are we going to do this?
Hmm.
The how, like, how are we going to have two households? How are we going to financially support two households, especially in the Bay Area? How
Mhm.
are we going to manage co-parenting? If the kids are going to go back and forth, this is a big, so I'm a big supporter of the co-parenting piece. So a lot of families come to me for co-parenting support. We kind of come up with a plan or structure. Some families are going to court, Shruti, and they're having so much trouble that the judges are now ordering co-parenting counseling.
Hmm.
They're like, you must now, by the court's order, seek out counseling with the specialist, because you guys are so disorganized around this that the courts don't have time to sort this out for
Hmm.
everybody. So they'll send, so we have some court ordered families that are coming to us, which is actually, it's not a bad thing. It's just the court has identified, hey, this is a need. um you guys should get some support. And it takes time to develop a new plan. This is a new phase for a family, a stage of life. And so it takes a little bit of time to get organized. And so the courts don't have this kind of time. So they'll send it to a counselor in the community. So that's kind of also something we're seeing more and more of, is our Indian families going through the court system and then maybe self-electing, or the court is ordering that they have at least, sometimes it's 5, 10 sessions with the counselor for co-parenting. Yeah.
What are some of the unhealthy ways that these parents cope with all this? Like
There's,
things, yeah.
there's a lot of venting. This is one I have to kind of watch my parents and caution my parents. I say, guys, I know this is tough. I know you don't want to live with this partner anymore, but this person is always going to be this children's parent.
Hmm.
So that's not going to change. You might be like, I don't want to live with this person. I don't want to be partnered with this person anymore.
Hmm.
You have some choice in that.
Hmm.
The kiddos do not have a choice that this is going to be a parent for the rest of their lives. So we have to be very mindful of how we're talking about each parent, the partners in front of the kids, right? So
Hmm.
this comes up a lot. I notice this a lot, a challenge for my families, because they're like, Nate, I'm not talking to the kids about dad, let's say, but I was on the phone with my sister going off, or I was on
Hmm.
venting to my best friend, and the 6 year old is like listening, right? Somehow these kids like absorb all these conversations and they're listening to us. And so I caution my parents. I say, guys, I don't mind you venting, getting support. Please do it when the kiddos are out of the house, like they're at school, they're at their dad's house. Just be very mindful. The other day a mom was saying, she's like, oh, I was just in the kitchen talking to my mom, and her mom was home, like in the home. And she's like, the 6 year old was upstairs, yeah, well, like whatever. And I'm like, well, somehow he has heard all of what you were pretty upset, and he heard all that, and that's not helpful to the children. So I'm really trying to impress upon my parents that, like, we have to be mindful of how we're speaking about the other parent if the kids are around,
Hmm.
because it's making that impression. And then it's like we're having all this negative, if it's negative talk, and then we're sending the kid to that parent's house later that night for a visit or for a custody exchange, and then the child's like has all this in their head, right? It's causing a lot of confusion. Mhm.
Now that we already spoke about the children, what do you think are the emotional struggles for the child or the children involved? What do
There's
you
a lot of
see?
confusion, huh? Shruti, there's a lot of confusion. The kids are like, what is happening? Why does dad live in this house and mom lives in this house? And how long is this going to happen? So I try to tell my families, let's try to give them as much grounding as possible. Be like, okay, dad's going to give them facts, right? Dad's going to live here. Mom's going to live here. Your school is not going to change. If we can if we could not change schools, that would be great because we want as much consistency for them as possible as they're going through this other change within the family. So some of my families also move during this period, and I say that's a lot of change for a kiddo. So if we can keep the schools the same, but what I want is to basically tell the child what this is going to look like. Like try to like I even say to many of my families, I'm like, get a physical calendar,
Mm,
a big one, maybe
mm,
one of those desk ones, like the big ones, and go through the month. Like we'll go through, we'll do it sometimes here in the office in for Feb, and we'll be like, let's go through the month. Okay, it's Valentine's Day. It's this, Monday's off, and we put all the dates on the calendar. And then I sit with one of the parents. I'm like, can we run through the custody, what the exchanges look like, who has a child when, what's the schedule for the month, and you can color code. I like to color code one parent in one color and one parent in a different color, and try to make this clear to the child.
mm,
This is a lot to navigate.
mm,
And it's also really helpful for the parent too. I say, hey, put this up in the house so we can see it. And so, and the child sometimes the kids will be like, am I going to dad's today? And we'll be like, no, actually, let's go look at the calendar. And I say, walk over to the calendar and say, hey, today's the 19th. We're actually going to dad's on the 21st. Like, see the date here. And we need to set up structures and
mm,
routines for them. And this is also, again, where our office is able to help with this process a little bit. But again, who is helping the parent? The parents have so much they're managing that
mm,
this is like one piece. There's so many pieces. This is one where the counselor can help. And so, again, to answer that question, is less confusion, more
mm.
routines, structure, trying to kind of be clear what kind of the week looks like, what the month looks like, depending on the ages of the kids too, like the sophistication of how much information we share, right? A 5-year-old versus a 12-year-old might look a little different.
Mm. So here's one thing though, right? They will still may act out. The kids may act out.
Oh yeah.
And how do you like, I don't know, how do you recognize that this is
Huh.
actually because of this monumental change happening in their lives? It could be, what can you do? How do you
It
recognize
could be
that?
so many things, right? It could be like you have a 12-year-old who's in seventh grade who's having bullying at school. Like it could be other things going on. The one thing that's common that we also talk about in the counseling for my families is that the transition days can be uh, a little bit bumpy for the families. So I say
Mm,
to the parents, I'm like, please anticipate that any transition needs a little bit of space. So, for example, like we transition, let's say on Fridays, meeting, we're going to go from mom's house. The kids have been at mom's house all week. Friday afternoon, they're going to go to dad's and be at dad's for the weekend or for the next following week. Um, that transition date, that Friday afternoon, maybe after school, I tell the receiving parent, dad, I say, please don't have a lot of activities planned up right when they're transitioning to your house. I need a soft landing. I need like a transition time where they're back to your house. I need the house to be as calm and welcoming and warm and have food and have things set up for them so that you've spent the week kind of prepping to have them receive them, right? So your house is not chaotic. I want really the homes to be as steady as possible. And to keep in mind, don't plan a lot on the day that they're coming because sometimes they're, oh, I picked him up and we went straight to a play date and we went straight to a this. I mean, and the child is not had enough time to transition or maybe would like to have more of that grounding in the home to have a little bit of transition time. And so I tell people also kids can act out during that period because they're a little bit, change can be hard. And then they might be like, oh, I'm missing mom, and that's also fine. Be like, okay, fine, you're missing mom. Do you want to give her a call? Like, it's like, don't create barriers around the other parent. Um, Set up a call. Say, like, let's call mom and say hi. And it'll literally be like 2 or 3 minutes, and then they're kind of done. Like it'll move. So yeah, so the transition days is something that I want parents to be mindful of and be thinking about.
So I'm thinking you have youth. children who come to you who are not coping well, right? Who are not. You've given all this, the parents are kind of doing it right, but there are clear signs and they're like, hey, we don't know how to help. It could be academic, which is like the lowest, but it's important in an Indian household or a South Asian household. There's sudden behavioral changes,
Yeah.
right? And just general withdrawal from things that they used to like. I mean, I guess we could say that child could actually be depressed,
Yeah,
right?
for
So
sure.
what do you notice? What do you do in
What we
that case?
notice is depression is usually withdrawal from activities. So they'll come over and they'll just go to the room and just close the door. We have to sort that out because some of that is normal teenage behavior. Some
Mm,
of that is, but then it's also like if there's very little engagement as far as like, the next day we're like, let's go, it's a Saturday, let's go to lunch, let's go out, let's go do something, let's go to the movies. And the child is like, no, 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 I don't want to, I don't want to. Noticing any like strong with ongoing withdrawal
mm,
symptoms, right? And then you might want to be like, you trying to engage them, trying to talk to them. At some point, you might want to say, hey, do we want to meet with the therapist and kind of talk about this for added support? Um, Another warning sign is the kids start to say, I don't want to go to school. Like that kind of withdrawal starts to happen with some of our families. So that's also not great because we
mm,
can't have them missing too much school. Sometimes, as a compromise, I'll tell the parent, I say, hey, if they need to rest, could you say, you want to sleep in and maybe miss first period today on Monday? Today, and then I can take you second period. I can drop you a little bit later to school, but it's not really an option to miss the day. But I'm willing to be flexible with you to miss like first period and then drop you a little later. So I'm like also trying to kind of coach the parents. I'm like, how can we work with them to be like, I'm on your side. Like I need that messaging with the parents to the child. I'm like, I'm on your side. I want to support. I'm here to support you. Um, Another tricky part, Shruti, is like the child will be at dad's and they're like, well, I just want to go back to mom's house. And now the dad has feelings around that, right? The dad is like, this is my time and you're supposed to be with me right now. So I also have to kind of help the parents manage some of their emotions because they can feel like rejection or they can feel like, oh, I did all this work to, I've been missing them all week, right? And I finally have the kids with me and now they want to go back to mom's. And I say, they're kids, they're allowed to have preferences of who who they're attached to and who they want to spend time with. Give it a little bit of space. I don't want you to get a lot of defensiveness and forcing and say, but this is our time together. I want to make it the best we can make it. What can we do today? And yeah,
mm.
it's a little bit bumpy. So it's like that's part of the process is that the kids might have a preference on whose house they want to be at because they're still adjusting to this new schedule. Uh,
So, what are some of the coping skills that these kids can manage all this? Because I feel like it's really hard, especially if they're super loyal to both parents
yeah.
and they love them both. It could be very hard to accept the divorce and yes, therapy. But what are some things that they do or you advise them to do on a day-to-day basis to just, not the parents, the children themselves,
Right.
right?
I say to the children, I say, speak up and check in with parents about how you're doing. If there's things at dad's house that you're like, oh, this could be nicer, or I could we have I had a child once, she's like, oh, I want the bedding to be different in my bed, but I don't know how to tell dad. And I said, if you're going to be more comfortable at home with the bedding a little bit differently, or it's like similar to mom's house or something, some preference you have, I want to build this comfort of communication, right? That you can like tell your parent, I'm like, oh, I really like to eat this in the mornings, right? And so maybe the parent was like, oh, I didn't realize that like now you're eating this fruit or this cereal or this whatever. Um, and so to tell dad or tell mom, I'm like, oh, I really like this. Can we do this more? So it's like we're trying to build communication, but also speak about, share our needs in a safe way, and also, create a comfortable environment. Like these things all will be helpful to them. And then also open communication, be like, hey, if anything's bothering you, you can talk to me. And I need to make sure parents are not forcing that conversation to be like, you need to tell me right now what's bothering you and what's going on. And it doesn't work. Like that doesn't. The other thing that's I've seen work is that we have time, at a parent's house if there's other supportive adults around. Like suppose we have extended family, aunts, uncles, grandparents, we have neighbors, we have family friends. We say, "Hey, we're gonna hang out with friends and stuff." So it's like trying to create community from your house. That also has been helpful for my kids. The kids are going through the divorce process to feel like they're connected, right, to other supportive adults. So that's also been something to consider.
Actually, I was going to ask you about extended families, but you
Yeah,
covered it. That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
So I think we're kind of getting close to the end. I was wondering if there is one piece of advice you had to give Daisy families going through divorce, what would that be?
You acknowledge to self that this is hard, this is new, and give yourself a little bit of time to sort it out because parents get very stressed out that they're supposed to have all the answers.
Mm-hmm.
You may not have all the answers. Try to seek out answers. You can come to a counselor. You can maybe talk to another adult that's been through a divorce process, maybe like a coworker or a friend or something. Get information so you don't feel so alone. I feel like the parents feel very isolated and alone in this process. Please try to shield your anxiety and stress from the children because they see, they're like, we can get into the car and we can tell dad is stressed out. And I was like, oh, they're like, he hasn't even said anything. And I was like, they're like, we can tell he's stressed out. Right. And I'm like, okay, if you're having time with your kids, I want you to kind of try to figure out how to make that the most.
But I always wonder, what about honest
Yeah.
communication? We
Yeah.
can't always be superheroes. That's
Yeah.
setting up an unrealistic standard, right?
That's true.
I always worry. It's very hard to perform like that, especially when you're going through something as difficult. I mean, not all the time, sometimes.
I think I like this point. I think it's fine to say, hey, I'm a little bit stressed today. I'm a little bit worried today. But I don't want that to be the entire time you have your children with you. You've
Hmm.
spent now on the phone or on the computer, or like you're so distracted that you're not making this time quality time with your children because the adult has let our stress and anxiety take over.
Hmm.
And so then the kids also then can't connect with us if we're too preoccupied.
Hmm.
But this is a good point. I said you don't have to be smiley and happy and jumpy all the time. That's also
Hmm.
not reality. But try to kind of manage some of that when the kids are with us because they can pick it up. And then sometimes they are like, well, I don't really want to hang out with dad because he's like in a bad mood, and that's really rough. We don't The kids then feel helpless to help us and to be around us. Yeah.
Hmm. All right. Last question. What gives you hope when working with families in this transition? Like, what makes you feel like, you know what?
I
Me,
love this
Daisy, is still
question.
going to make it.
You know what gives me hope, Shruti, is the kids are speaking up.
Good to
Oh
know.
my goodness. Okay. I think we're raising kids. The schools are doing a pretty okay job with like talking about mental health more and more in the school districts, which I love. And we're identifying emotions and we're saying, I'm happy, I'm sad, stressed. And so the kids are speaking up where they're like, I don't like this. This is worrying me. This is making me mad. So I have like 5-year-olds saying like, no, this is not okay. And it's like, this is amazing. So the kids that this brings me hope as a therapist because I'm like, oh my gosh, the kids are having more language actually around emotion and emotional safety and communication around their feelings than some of my adults clients. So that's bringing me hope because then the kids are able to speak up and say, this is working, this is not working. The other thing that's giving me hope is that more and more families are finding providers.
Hmm.
They're like, oh my gosh, there are counselors that help with this stuff. And they don't know, like maybe they don't know that. So more families are finding us and help. We're able to help them with the process so they don't feel so alone. So I think that gives me hope too.
That's
Mhm.
wonderful to hear. Thank you so much, Simi. Thank you
Yes,
so much. Hopefully, I don't know. I'm sure there are people out there who are going through this process and might not have, much hope, a lot of direction, like we always say in our cause. They sees, we lack the words, right? Then we worry way too much about who's saying what, log kya kahenge, the stigma and the shame, and we don't act till there's a crisis, right? But hopefully, with everything that you've said here and seeing that people are coming, that's changing. And this story is going to help somebody. Your advice is going to help somebody navigating the same situation.
I hope so.
Thanks again, but I'll see you soon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.